I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Welcome to the Rainbow Push Coalition Saturday Morning Community Freedom Forum. We're excited to bring to you another broadcast where we inspire, we inform, and engage you in the movement for change. Reverend Jackson wants all of the members of the Push family to be in prayer this week for another prophetic giant that has made his transition, Bishop William Ellis of the Maple Park Apostolic Church. We thank God for his witness in this city, his support for the movement, his engagement in prophetic preaching. We're praying for the Ellis family. Today we have a lot to cover. Want to share with you our food justice program. In Chicago, we've given away more than 200,000 meals and groceries just in the city of Chicago, not counting what's happening in San Francisco and not counting our food justice program in our satellite office in Atlanta, Georgia. We encourage all of you to help us give more because more are needed. Give right now. You can join Push. Go to rainbowpush.org. We need your support so that we might continue our food justice program. We're giving diapers away to mothers who have infant children who need diapers. I know you're wondering, what is this whole thing in Georgia about? You should read Reverend Jackson's column. You say you don't have a column, go to rainbowpush.org. Download the column. It's on the screen right now. You ought to have Georgia on your mind. Call all your friends, text your friends, tweet your friends, reach out to your friends, email your friends who live in the state of Georgia. We got to turn this vote up, turn it out. We got Giving Tuesday coming up December 1st. You've been waiting. You've been saying, how can I give? Well, Giving Tuesday is your opportunity. You want to make sure that you look to give to Push. You go to Amazon Smile. Why? Because if you go to Amazon Smile and click Push for Excellence, then while you're shopping, you're giving to us so that we can serve more children, serve more people, and meet more needs. Giving will help us continue to serve and to be a blessing. This past week we had our Telecom Summit. Coming soon will be the Automotive Summit. It's going to be December 2nd. It's virtual. You can sign up now. You can register now. The information is right on the screen. And then December, it's anniversary month. I know you want to celebrate the journey from the time Dr. King enlisted Reverend Jackson to form Operation Breadbasket and move the Southern actions to the north and create this Northern Initiative. I know you want to see what is it that caused Reverend Jackson to sustain the work of Dr. King down through these 54 years. Well, tune in. Every Saturday in December, we're going to give you highlights of the beginnings and highlights of what we're doing now. We want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Look, our YouTube channel is just like having your own TV station. You can pick when you want to watch us. You can tell your friends that not in social media. You just go to YouTube and watch Rainbow Push. All right, stay tuned. A satellite office is going to report. You're going to hear a lot about what's happening in Georgia and how you can get involved. You're going to hear about what we're thinking about in terms of education policy and procedures that we expect from this new administration. And more than anything, you're going to hear about why you and your family, your friends, your network, your co-workers should be members of Push. We need you to join the movement. Stay tuned. Get involved. Get inspired.
Get ready for our December 12th HBCU tour. We will not only go to Spelman and Howard University, but we are in partnership with Jack and Jill our Metropolitan Family Services, as well as the links. Push Excel is continuing to make partnerships in the community to strive for excellence with you and your families. Students, we are here to support you. So continue to stay tuned to www.pushexcel.org because we have many more workshops coming up here towards the end of the year in 2020 and pushing on into 2021.
This is an awesome opportunity that we all have been granted the privilege of. And we first and foremost want to say thank you to Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson and the Rainbow Push Coalition for this awesome opportunity that I believe will end up being historic. It will end up being something that is great, monumental, I think, for the young Black American of today.
What we're focused on is the question, where do we go from here? And we're answering that in the millennials' perspective. We understand that we have a large stake, and we understand that we have largely helped deliver this election in the Democratic favor. And so we need to come together, deliberate on where do we go from here? How do we demand what we want? How do we demand justice? How do we not let our issues fall through the cracks and the slips of the Democratic hands again?
To really just discuss this topic, where do we go from here? Because I think that during this time, our way can get so weary, and we get confused, especially when we have civil unrest. We have a pandemic, and so many businesses, so many restaurants are closing down. And so for young people, it's hard to really figure out, where do we fit? Where do we belong? Especially when we see so many of our young African-American men dying because of police brutality, and our women, not being able to, just be women and to live in this world that just seems just turbulent right now. With Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, I believe it is it's breathtaking. It's breathtaking to really see history is right before our very eyes. I'm living during a time where now women are able to vote. We're able to have those positions to be able to, be vice president, to be president, to have these government official, positions, when a time when we were not able to do that before. And so to see that and to know that other young women and other young girls have that possibility, that ability to just do that. And it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. And I just hope, I believe that Kamala Harris said, yeah, I may be the first to do that, but my goal is not to be the only one. Not to be the only one. So we need some more people to be after Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. She's setting the foundation, but it's up to us to keep it running, to keep it going. It's like we're running a track race. If you hand the baton, you need somebody to keep going. You need somebody to keep going. So that's what I want to tell us, to keep going. Don't stop here. Just because we see this Vice President-elect here in the office, it's not time for us to stop. It's time for us to take notes, keep going, and see how we can be a part of the solution.
I see voting as a way for us to get to the polls and also for us to speak our voices. But as Hannah said, if we have the baton, whoever has the baton in their hand, to me, it feels like that person with that baton needs to do something. Therefore, we need to hold Vice President-elect and Biden to what their promises were. We can't be just speakers. We have to be doers. I like to see the action, and whatever you're going to say or do, let me see the action. So yes, this is an honor and a blessing. Yes, we see history in the making, but will history repeat itself? Will history fall apart? That's the real question in my mind. Will history go forth and do great things, or will history fall apart? Yes, we want other Black women to proceed in her footsteps, to go further, to do more, be president of the United States. But we want to see that whatever you promised us, we want to see you do. We want to see the Black community benefiting from whatever you say or whatever you do. Because if not, then we're just going to fall apart. We're just going to be those Democrats. We're just going to be those independent voters who said, I believed in this person, but they have failed me once again. And that, to me, it looks like you're going to go back to Trump or whoever else is next, because the people in the office aren't holding what they said. You have to hold and lead these people accountable for what they're doing, because at the end of the day, it's up to us.
I think there was always an idea, as long as democracy has existed, but certainly within the last couple of decades, that a woman would make it to the presidency or at least the vice presidency. And it always kind of appeared, maybe with Geraldine Ferraro, that it could happen if you were white. And of course, with Hillary Clinton, it could happen if you were a Yale Law School graduate. But Kamala Harris, I think, represents the example that you don't have to check any particular boxes. You just have to be great at your job. You just have to be fervent in fighting for Black people. And that's what she's done.
The role that the Black church has is, number one, to save their community where they serve at. I believe every church has an obligation to serve at least a 2 to 3 block radius around where they are in proximity. And that's to meet the needs of your people, because most Black churches are served in impoverished communities, and their job is to be the voice and the catalyst for the people. Many preachers are pimping the people themselves, and most pastors have been completely quiet during this election season. I say this, especially about the church. Many churches have used COVID and this an election year as an excuse to stay more quiet and inactive than what they was in the first place. And that's something that cannot be allowed. To me, church never shut down, because number one, church is not a building, it's not proximity. Church is the people, the assembly. And once we understand that concept of what the true essence of what Christ represents, is not about our pulpits, our robes, our conferences, or our programs. It's about meeting the needs of the people. Our people, where our churches are in the inner city, and that's what saved this election. Every state that was in limbo, it was the major city for Black people that saved the election. Detroit, Philly, Atlanta, those 3 cities was the mecca that got Biden this election. So it's our job as churches, just Black people, period, to not just be caught up on the fact that we have a Black woman vice president, to not be caught up on the fact that this new cabinet may be majority Black. We can't be caught up on the fact of that, because images and figureheads and photo ops is not going to solve our problems. Chicago, 700 people have been killed in Chicago this year. We had 700 already. That got completely ignored. There are grassroots organizations, there are community organizations that's doing the work every single day. And I have the mentality now is that if we're not talking to people that's going to provide resources and justice, like literal funding, money that goes to our organizations, our schools, our communities, then we have absolutely nothing to talk about. We've seen politicians before speak. We know what preachers going to say. We know what activists going to say. I'm pretty sure everybody on this call or Zoom is zoomed out from 2020. We did enough Zooms. We did all these panels, these discussions. We all know what the right stuff to say. But if this next administration is not really going to put their money where their mouth is, then they could be a one-term administration as well. That's the attitude we got to have, federally and locally and statewide. People will be a one-term administration if you don't put your money where your mouth is to grassroots organizations, to community organizing, to people that's already doing the work who get overlooked when the camera's not running, because there's people in the inner cities that's providing resources, food, programming for their people in their neighborhoods, and they need more resources for them. Think about our clearance rate. How many cases have been solved for murders this year? We have so many parents that's hurting right now because they don't have justice for their children. How many guys have to carry guns on them because they're scared of where they live? How many girls are in fear because they may be trafficked? How many kids can't eat, so they got to turn to the streets to live an alternate lifestyle because our local, state, and federal government is getting left off the hook? And our job as the church and as the preacher is to be scared enough to lose everything to speak your mind, because most preachers are scared to speak the truth because they don't want to make their congregation mad. So you got to be bold enough to say, if this is my last time preaching here because y'all don't like what I'm preaching, then I'm out of here, because I'm going to stand for truth. I'm going to preach the truth, and we got to fight for our people. We know our scriptures. Ain't no more Bible toting, scripture quoting. No, if you really going to say you represent Christ, then you got to actually represent the Christ of the Bible, not that Lamb of God. No, that Lion of Judah that went up in the temple, flipped tables of the money changers because they was using money to pimp the people and to gain themselves, but yet they weren't helping the people. And that's what we got to be focused on. So we got to hold this administration accountable, hold our local officials accountable, hold ourselves accountable, that we're going to put our foot to ground, take our money out of our pockets for ourselves, and help the most vulnerable. And that's our job as the Black church.
Time for the church to be a little bit more hands-on in the movement and reclaiming the movement. We have seen this movement go from peaceful protests, as I remember in 2016, when we were marching and organizing with Reverend Jackson concerning the Laquan McDonald case, 16 shots and a cover-up. We were able to keep most things peaceful, that being the great Black Friday protests with thousands of people on Michigan Avenue, to fast forward 4 years later in 2020, when Michigan Avenue is being looted, Michigan Avenue is being torn down, and those same youth who have the energy, who have the zest, if you will, who have the passion, and they want to express what's going on, they don't have anyone to take them up under their wing. And so that is where the church must come in a form of mentorship for this movement, to reclaim the movement back to peace, back to nonviolence, back to the principles of nonviolence that Dr. King showed us. There is power in the local church, and talking about what something that Reverend Jackson spoke on, the Georgia Senate election. The pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, Raphael Warnock, is running. And so I think that if you look at the great Bible Belt and Atlanta being a great mecca of mega churches, and there's even great seminaries there in Atlanta. There's so much energy and so much focus in the Black church in Atlanta. And I think we really must focus, and the Black church must focus on how can we best serve the least of these? How can we best serve the least of these? So looking at that Atlanta situation, focusing on being a headlight and not a tail light, and pushing for progressive politics, not Democratic, not Republican, but progressive politics. That's the position that the church must be in. The church must be ready to receive the energy of the youth.
I just think that we need to be able to take something away from this and be able to move expeditiously, remain influential by keeping our voices heard. One of the things that I want to say something Pastor Johnson said, he said that you cannot be afraid, in so many words, and I paraphrase, that we have to speak out. We can't be silent. But to speak out means that you have to, as the church and all of those different social interest groups, have to be willing to be beheaded. And I say that because if you're going to speak out and be a prophet, which means speaking truth to power, John the Baptist was beheaded, all because he told the truth. He said, repent, meaning turn away. We're going in the wrong direction. Make a U-turn. We're going in the wrong direction. He didn't say repeat. And so if we're going to get through this season, we got to repent, not repeat. We have to turn from where the direction we're headed, trying to take healthcare away in the middle of a global health pandemic, making sure communities of colors and HBCUs are funded so they can thrive, not just survive. That's not enough. Making sure that seniors and those that are in at-risk groups have the personal protective equipment that they need to survive, and that every child that is going to come up from this next generation has the resources to go to a college of their choice and come out with as minimal debt as they can.
You think about how you feel when democracy is legitimately about to be taken away from you. You hear about sitting senators, Lindsey Graham, who is saying to people, throw away these votes. You hear that. And so that doesn't stop here. I think, like many other of the panelists said, like, that continues through the midterms, that continues with the next presidential election, that continues even at your churches, at your dinner tables, talking about these ideas with other people, seeing what other people think about this, because, you know, all of our voices matter, but we the more we learn about what one another wants, the more informed we are. And then also, I think Olivia said this earlier, keeping these politicians' feet to the fire, whether they look like us or not, because at the end of the day, we just want what's best for our people. And so we can only do that by making sure we stay informed, that we're paying attention to the news, wherever it is that you do get your news, and not just throwing away the baby with the bathwater because you don't necessarily like the system. And just finally, I think we should continue to lead by example. We do have Generation Z coming up right on our heels, and we want to be able to give them something that they can continue. Like, I think I think it was Olivia again who said about talking about passing the baton. We want to be able to give them something that they can use for the next generation, structures that we can set up, grassroots organizations using apps like Jordan's politicking, things like that. Like we want to be able to pass that type of things on and inspire the next generation of creators and activists and civil rights organizers and voters and mobilizers.
I think for many of us, we oftentimes want to go to the person who has a seat at the table and ask for change. While many of us have God-given gifts, have talent, have the ability, have the wherewithal, the knowledge to take a seat at the table, really be the person who can make the decision, be one of the decision makers. And so as we are getting in place where many people are deciding to vote, I even tell some decide to run. So that you now can be that representation for your community and really have a major place and voice in your community to have some major change.
I want to thank everybody that took part in this. And on behalf of Reverend Jackson, behalf of Rainbow Push, we're grateful for you. We do want you to join the movement. Don't leave here. I want to take a note from Olivia and say, keep on pushing. I want you all to join Push and keep on pushing. And if you don't know how to do that, you can text push to 41444, but also go to pushexcel.org where we will be able to share a lot of things with you, and rainbowpush.org as well. This does not stop here. So all of us have now figured out what we are talking about. And I want to take a quote from Jonathan Jackson, the national spokesperson of the Rainbow Push Coalition. Now that we know the problem, we don't want to fix the blame, we want to fix the problem. And so if that be the case, after we have these kinds of conversations, the question then becomes, what can you do to fix the problem and not the blame? As we walk away from here, we should be looking at how can we fix the problem that we've identified on this, the very problem that you were as passionate about, that you spoke on tonight. How can we fix that problem? And the second thing is, how can we organize students in Georgia? Let's not forget that time is running out. December 7th is the last day in Georgia to register. December 14th, early voting starts. The runoff election is January the 5th. And so the last thing we want to do after we galvanize, we got to prioritize. And that's what we're going to do with these things. As we've talked about all these things, right now, Georgia runoff election should be the first thing on everyone's mind. We should all be feeling like Ray Charles, Georgia. You understand? We should all be feeling like Ray Charles, and Georgia should be on our mind. That's the first priority. Biden is going to come in January the 20th. We'll talk about what we're going to demand from Biden in January, but let's prioritize as these things happen, because there are deadlines and we have to meet those deadlines. The first thing is that that runoff election. The last thing is what does that look like? Whatever you think the solution is to the problem that is at hand, whatever you think we should be doing, the question then becomes, what does that look like? How can we then put wheels in motion? If there's a program, what's the program? Who teaches the program? What's the curriculum for the program? When will the program meet? How will the program meet? On what time? On what days? Alternating, whatever. What does that look like? Whatever your solution is, begin to think as we make this a series. And as the next time you come back, all of you that are on here, please stay connected. We want you to come back. And when you come back, we want to know, when you gave us an answer now, what does that answer look like? How can we make that into fruition? Elder Grant, I thank you all so much. Thank each and every one of you. Again, thank Rainbow Push. God bless you. God keep you. May his love ever smile upon you.
Greetings, friends. This is Joseph Bryant Jr., the Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition Silicon Valley Bay Area office and the West Coast Regional Director for Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. What a wonderful blessing it is to serve in this capacity and to do the wonderful work that has been going on, especially this past week. We have had an amazing past few days. I want to thank Reverend Jackson for his constant leadership and vision, always giving us reason to keep hope alive. And that's the way we started the week. On Monday, we had our Keep Hope Alive COVID support event launched in San Francisco with faith leaders in San Francisco alongside the COVID Command Center and various city agencies. What a collaboration. The agencies that were involved, the Department of Public Health, the Human Rights Commission, UCSF Hospital, and the San Francisco Arts and Cultural Organization with some youth presentations on COVID safety. What a wonderful engagement we had. And we were just trying to make sure that the African-American faith community has the resources needed, the information needed, and the support needed during COVID. And so we want to be able to replicate that kind of engagement in all of our satellite cities. Very glad to have launched it with Reverend Jackson and our Senior Vice President, Dr. Todd Yeary, along with all those wonderful partners and collaborators in San Francisco. In particular, shout out to the San Francisco African American Faith-Based Coalition. They are doing amazing work. They have partnered with us, and we have now provided over 160,000 meals since the beginning of COVID, and we're going to continue into next year, because we know even as we hopefully can take a turn and make a turn with this pandemic, we will still need to support our people. So we're grateful for those type of partners and collaborators. We're also thankful for our district supervisor in San Francisco, Shaman Walton, who came by this week to visit our community learning hub, where we have students of essential workers, students that don't need to be at home alone, need to be supported and encouraged, tutored, as well as assisted as they go online with their classes and their Zooms. And so we have learning hubs that are set up on our campus for students to come and be able to learn each and every day in a safe environment, a secure environment, a COVID safe environment. They're receiving breakfast and lunch every day, as well as the tutorial support they need for their work, online support, and various other resources that we provide. We're very grateful to be able to do that type of work as well. We're also thankful for the partnership with the Ford Motor Company. Thank you so much. We were able to distribute masks, PPE masks, throughout the state of California this week. On Friday was our PPE day. And so we had churches in the Bay Area. We had churches in Los Angeles. We had ministry partners. We had collaborators, the NFL Players Congress. We thank you for your support. The LA Sentinel, we thank you for your support. Mothers of Justice, we thank you for your support. And all of the various companies coordinated with us, that the nonprofits that helped us get these masks out to our constituents throughout the state of California. A very successful engagement, and we're thankful to be able to provide those PPE masks. So many things will change as all of us take the responsibility to just wear our masks, wash our hands, and keep our distance. And so going into the holidays, let me just encourage you to do everything in your power to stay safe, as well as keep your family members safe. We are thankful also for the Connected Churches platform, where we are equipping churches, ministry leaders, congregations around the country. And we have a boot camp that we just started this past Thursday, our technology boot camp. And let me just say to you that we want to invite you to join with us for our boot camp. It's not too late to join with us. We're going to be teaching various areas of technology each and every week going forward. Over the next several weeks, we're going to have this engagement. And so we look forward to partnering with you December 4th, December 11th, and December 18th. The next few weeks, we will be making these resources available. We will be making sure that our churches are able to get what they need online, online giving, setting up Zoom, setting up meeting spaces. We want to be able to do all those types of things through our Faith Tech Connected Churches program. So again, get in touch with us, info@connectedchurches.com, or you can reach out to our Silicon Valley office at 415-647-6046. And as always, you can go to our website for Rainbow Push, for all things Push, all the wonderful activity happening. Shout out to DC for your summit this week. Getting ready to take a turn now and go to the Midwest area of Detroit for our next automotive summit event. And so Push is on the move for you. We're grateful for Reverend Jackson. Continue to do what you do all around the country, all of our partners and collaborators. For those who are not yet a part of the Push family, make sure that you text the word PUSH to 41444. Be a part of the movement. This is our celebration month coming in December, celebrating the anniversary of the organization. And we want to have a push for membership. So make sure that you become a member of Rainbow Push. And in all things, you are doing what Reverend Jackson has told us to do now for nearly 60 years, which is to keep hope alive. God bless.
Good morning. We are in the midst of a major drive to get more members, more people engaged and involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. If you're interested in public policy and you want to help change the policies that impact those incarcerated, change the policies that impact students attending colleges and universities. If you want to be a policymaker, then you need to join Rainbow Push and join by paying your $35 right now. Some of you watch us every week. You listen to us on the radio. You're viewing us in social media. We need you to become a member. It's only $35 a year. If you believe in the scholarships that we give to thousands of students each and every year, we've awarded more than $10 million to scholars year to date. What do you have to do to give and support PUSH? It's really very simple. You can go to rainbowpush.org if you're on a computer and press donate. Give any amount. Every dollar is important. You want to talk to somebody, call us at 773-256-2775. You can give right now, any denomination that you choose. You can text the word PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444. Text on your cell phone. Most of you have a cell phone. Just text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444, and you can give any amount that you feel comfortable giving. Or call us 773-256-2775, or go to rainbowpush.org and just press donate. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you.
The results of the 2020 election left both of Georgia's Senate seats up for grabs. Both races will be decided in a January 5th runoff election after none of the four candidates received more than 50% of the vote. And the stakes are high. How Georgians vote will ultimately determine the balance of power in the Senate. The two groupings of campaigns are Senator Perdue versus Jon Ossoff.
And retirement is coming for Senator David Perdue.
And Senator Kelly Loeffler versus Reverend Raphael Warnock.
Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, you're not going to take Georgia.
After the November election, Republicans hold 50 seats while Democrats hold 48. This means that Republicans just need to win one of the two races to keep their majority. But if Democrats win both, then the Senate will be split 50-50. This includes two independents who tend to vote alongside Democrats. This even split would still tilt the Senate in Democrats' favor, because any tie votes would be broken by Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. At the same time, Georgia narrowly turned blue in the presidential election and is home to a wave of strong Democratic influence. Warnock and Ossoff are relatively fresh to politics. Ossoff comes from a media background and ran an unsuccessful special election campaign for a House seat in 2017.
This is a moment when all of us should be uniting.
Warnock is in his first run, but brings to the table a church work, activist, and nonprofit background. He would be the first elected Black Democratic senator from the Deep South.
And I'm talking to real Georgians who are struggling with real issues.
The two Senate seats will make a massive difference in whether President-elect Biden will be able to pass promised legislation in his first term. So while it may just be one state, all eyes are on Georgia as their runoff elections approach.
I want to thank you all for joining us in this conversation that we're having on the upcoming Georgia runoff election. As many of you know, coming out of November the 5th, we have two Senate seats remaining in the entire country, and both of those are in Georgia. We have the opportunity down here in Georgia to decide what the balance of power is going to be in the Senate, who are going to be our representatives, and who really is going to be the leader of the Senate, who will be able to pass cabinet positions, federal court judges, and clear out that backlog. I'm Attorney Robert Patil. I'm the Southeastern Regional Director for the Rainbow Push Coalition, and we're having this conversation today with an esteemed panel. We have President of the Georgia NAACP, we have Reverend James Woodall, and also we have former candidate for Secretary of State and former state representative for the state of Georgia, D. Dawkins Hagler. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us, Robert. It's great to be with you and Rainbow Push as always.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me as well. I look forward to sharing where I can as it relates to pushing our people to the polls. And just a small correction, is more on the ballot than just the balance of power. It's about people's lives, and we want to make sure we lift up the voices of the people that are found here in the state of Georgia so that we can do what we need to do for our communities and ultimately our state.
All right, and James, I want you to extrapolate that on that a little bit, because we have the Senate races, we have the Public Service Commissioner race, we have the unexpired term of John Lewis on the ballot, we have state Senate seats, but more so we have a battle for the nation's very soul. Whether or not Trumpism will survive for another 4 years going into 2022, or will have the opportunity to move forward a progressive agenda. So kind of talk about what's at stake in this election.
You know, when you talk to voters throughout the state of Georgia, primarily outside of the Metro Atlanta area, but even in the Metro Atlanta area, folks care less about Democrat versus Republican. They care about being able to turn on their water faucet and be able to ensure that the water that they drink is clean, that the air that they breathe is that is not contaminated, right? They care about, during a public health pandemic, that the elected officials who have been appointed and elected to serve, especially in the Senate, to be able to get some kind of relief so that when they're laid off because they can't work because of the coronavirus, whether or not they've gotten it or somebody else has gotten it, they want to be able to trust that those who have been elected to help these people, to serve the common good, that they're not going to be more invested in profits on the stock market than they are themselves. And so this is what our voters are showing up for. And I believe that we're going to be able to do it again so that we can ensure that everybody has access to the kinds of life and liberty and pursuit of happiness that we got so accustomed to being promised, but not ever actually receiving.
Absolutely. Dee, I want to toss over to you because we're having this national conversation now on voter suppression, on counting ballots, on what's being done to ensure that we have free and fair elections. When you were running for Secretary of State, you were pushing many of these issues, 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, you were on this issue. So can you kind of describe this battle that we've had in Georgia to get to the place where we are now and how far we have to go to ensure free and fair elections?
Mm-hmm. And thank you for that question, Robert. So we have been battling this in Georgia for quite a while now. Many organizations, the late Dr. Joseph Lowery was one of the spearheaded, as well as Dr. James Orange, Dr. C.T. Vivian. And of course, there are many of us, Helen Butler still here, the late Rita Samuels, because Georgia has been suppressing votes for a long time. As a matter of fact, it started under Karen Hamlin's administration as Secretary of State. When she resigned to go on to run for Congress, for other office, then Brian Kemp stepped in, and under Brian Kemp, we had millions of people that were purged from the voter files in Georgia. And so we have been having this up and down relationship, or if you will, of trying to get voters back on the voter file, as well as getting the Republicans to understand that democracy is something that should be available to all people. And when you suppress votes, which they don't think purging people from the files is voter suppression, they feel, because they know demographics are changing, it's voter suppression nonetheless. So we know that because the Voting Rights Act was gutted, Section 4, Section 5, this is giving them carte blanche to act a straight, complete fool in Georgia. And so we're seeing the remnants of that now. And so we have, whether it was in Quitman, Georgia, or Hancock, Georgia, Macon, and all across the state, we have seen blatant, downright voter suppression in the forms of voter intimidation, in the form of voter community confusion. And so now here we are in 2020, but a lot of people thought it started in 2018, but it did not. It started right at around 2008, and here we are 12 years later.
Hey, and with that, we had the Georgia voter ID law that was back in 04, 05, 06, that period of time. Then they wanted to charge $10 for you to get a state issued voter ID. The federal court struck that down as being a poll tax. Then they took us into 2008. And I think we haven't had an African-American elected statewide in Georgia since right around then, since Thurber Baker and Michael Thurman. I think that was right around that 2008 time period. So despite the demographics of the state changing, having 35% African-Americans, 11 to 12% Hispanic, 5% Asian, 52% women, we are still having a constitutional majority for Republicans in the House and the Senate, all statewide elected offices, the governor's mansion, and including the state court of appeals and the state Supreme Court. So they are in complete control of the state. But even despite that, you have a civil war going on within their party where they're accusing each other of voter suppression. Back over to James. James, can you kind of talk about the importance of this Senate race and how we can get more people excited and informed about the runoff? Because it's a very strange thing we do in Georgia to have a runoff at a Senate election. But can you kind of talk about that a little bit? What we need to do to drive that vote out on January the 5th?
What we're seeing right now is nothing short of racism and white supremacy. You know, the issues, ourselves against the kind of attacks that we're seeing on a very large scale. And then secondly, we got to make sure that our people know, that everything is happening, the dates. One of the things that the Georgia NAACP is doing with the partnership with one of our groups is that we're going to be sending out absentee ballot request forms to literally every single voter that voted both in person and by mail in this past general election. And then we're also going to, send out to other folks like that. And contact them, blow their phone up. I know a lot of folks get upset and don't want to have that, but we want to make sure our people know what is happening, because if they don't know, then they're not going to show up. And we can't expect, for us to just, go on CNN and MSNBC and talk about it. We need to go into these smaller communities that folks who don't necessarily watch this all day, every day. We need to talk about their issues, why this is important to them, and not just make it about, the national headlines and the national platform, because that's not going to turn our people out.
And on that point, James, we have, let's say, the Jeezy versus Gucci versus that's coming up this week. We have Lil Wayne versus T.I. coming up later on next month. We have a culture in Atlanta, which is very celebrity and pop culture based. How can we get those people motivated and activated to just tweet out to your millions of followers about the early vote, or the early voting date of December the 14th, or the voter registration deadline, December 7th, requesting an absentee ballot, which can be done now? How can we motivate those people to get involved on those sorts of things?
Well, I don't know if our position should be, how do we get celebrities to mobilize our voters? Like, our voters, we know for a fact that when we talk to the people who are trusted in these communities, celebrities are great, but let's get the trusted leadership, especially in South and rural Georgia, clergy, right? Business leaders, elected officials on a local level. Like, we spend so much time trying to mobilize celebrities and we don't lift up the people. Like, people win elections, not celebrities, not headlines, not television ads and commercials. People. We need to spend majority of our time mobilizing our communities around the issues so that they can show up and show out. Now, let's be very clear about something. We want them to show up and show out because we have an intended outcome of this election, because we know for us what it means for us. But that's not going to mobilize them. We need to talk about the issues that the people are talking about, lift up their voices so that they tell us what's going to happen. Because what the people want, we the people, that's what makes America the democracy that we know it can be. If we lift up that. But if we're trying to do everything else and try to convince them that what we want them to do is what is in their best interest, we lose. But if we lift up what they're telling us they want, that they need, that they're experiencing, I guarantee you won't have to convince a single soul to do anything, because they'll already be there. That's what we saw in this past general election, the most record turnout we've ever experienced, right? And we did that because we lifted up the issues. Communities came out in droves. They understood what was at stake. And we just got to do it again.
Absolutely.
And we are going to do it again.
Absolutely. Dee, before the general election, yourself and the Deltas and other civic groups, you knocked on 200,000 doors across the state. Going into the January 5th election, we have a couple stumbling blocks. We have Thanksgiving coming up. We have Christmas. We have New Year's. We have the weather changing, where it's going to be a lot colder and a lot more difficult to get people out. How can we mobilize people in this current circumstance? Because normally turnout for a runoff election is right at 10%. So 5 million people voting, that's 500,000 people. And that means 250,000 people could decide to balance of power in the Senate. How can we make sure that we are reaching people wherever they are?
And that's a good question, Robert. So first of all, it was so many different groups that went out and mobilized during the general primary. But one group in particular that I was working with was Ground Grain International and Power Pack, Black Pack. And so what we did was, I was a state director, I kept it on the low because loose lips sink ships. And we did nothing but rural areas. So we had offices in Augusta, Savannah, Columbus, Albany, Valdosta, and then we did little cities all around the Black Belt, from Camilla to Cairo to Quitman. And not only do we have offices, we had employees on the ground. I had over 200 employees just on the ground, paid employees, knocking on doors when everybody else was texting and tweeting and calling. I had people on the doors. And the reason why I didn't publicize it is because I said, if the Republicans know that I have people on the ground in South Georgia, then they're going to mobilize and get people on the ground. And sometimes you got to be strategic with all of this. And so right now we still have people on the grounds. I was in Columbus yesterday checking on our offices to make sure people are out. Augusta the day before. And so we've got to keep that momentum up. But people do what they want to do, Robert. See, that's the key. If people can stand in line and do whatever they used to do on Black Friday, surely we can motivate the masses to get back to the polls, because our very lives depend on it. Now, the Delta also, the whole entire D9 now has a grant, different grants, like Black Voters Matters is giving grants out to get people mobilized and in the streets. My chapter is actually the housing funds right now for the Deltas to mobilize across most of the state. And so I want to thank Black Voters Matters for that. But we have to be intentional, Robert. See, this is not about one individual. Now, of course, it's important to Georgia because there are a lot of issues that are salient to us. But we are also could be the stop wall for all of the Senate. So a lot rests on Georgia. And because it does, we have all of these people coming to Georgia, saying they want to be, consultants. They don't know Georgia. Hell, half the Black people in Georgia, in the metro, don't know Georgia. I mean, you have to have people who understand South Georgia or the state working the entire state in different parts. And I don't need a white consultant trying to tell me how to mobilize our people. We know how to mobilize. If we want to do something, give us the money. Like the NAACP people had people out as well, because I've seen some of them out when my people were out in Cobb and Gwinnett. But when you give people money, then we know what to do with our money. We don't need a babysitter. Hell, we know what to do. We always know how to organize. Black people are the kings and queens of organizing, especially like Rainbow Push. We know what to do. And so we're going to get them back out, because we're going to, we've hit the churches. The first go rounds, I utilized the Black church. I got, because that phase, voting and GOT, the first phase I did nonpartisan. So I made sure I got all of the churches that I could involved across the state. I had thousands of churches involved. And so when we do what we know how to do, we win. Now back to that thing Jane said about celebrities. Celebrities do have sway. You could be a celebrity just by being a politician, because we have some people now who fall into the celebrity status, and people will do whatever they say or believe that whatever they say have, is turned,
D is one of them.
Yeah, D is famous. I'm trying to be like her when I grow up.
What all you want to, but I'm just saying, we've got to harness that energy. I don't mind them telling people to go vote. I just don't need them talking about too many issues, because we see how that went south with some of them on this presidential election. But they can use their celebrity to push the vote out. What else they doing? You got millions of followers. You need to be tweeting and getting on the phone and doing Facebook Lives and Instagrams and Snapchat. You need to do something with your celebrity other than just having celebrity and making money. Do something with your celebrity. Now, I'm not gonna be hard on them like, President Obama, but that's a story for another day. Catch me on another day, we're gonna talk about that.
All right, now James, one of the things I think both of our organizations are working on is this concept of in custody voting for people who are currently in custody in county jails who have not been convicted of a felony, who are able to be registered and able to vote. Can you kind of talk about the work you guys did out in DeKalb County and how we can replicate that across the state?
Well, part of that is communication and building relationships with elected officials. Sheriff Maddox there in DeKalb County is a amazing partner with the DeKalb NAACP and thus the Georgia NAACP, and being able to ensure that every single resident at that jail is able to exercise their right. And so building those relationships across the board is going to be critical and key, because they shouldn't be disenfranchised. One, they shouldn't be in jail to begin with. That's a whole nother conversation. But if they're there as residents, they need to be able to exercise their right to vote. So Sheriff Maddox agreed, and they worked with the branch to ensure that every single resident there was able to have a mail-in ballot to be able to submit and mail that back in time for it to be processed for the election. I don't know what the return of the return rate was as it was handled on the local level. But what I do know is, again, like, I want to celebrate our local leaderships. To Dee's point, it's local folks getting this stuff done. People who have done this for years. This isn't new. We don't need consultants coming out telling us how to get it done. We already know the formula. Like, even in a general election, we turned we at the NAACP, we said we blacked Georgia out. Some other folks said we blew Georgia out. Or some others say we joled Georgia or whatever. But regardless of whatever we did, we know that there wasn't a lot of funding invested in Georgia this election. And you saw what we were able to do. Just imagine what happens if we have full investment from the top down, from the bottom up, and putting money and resources into the hands of people who know how to mobilize. Because what I'm gonna see in this election cycle is that we're gonna see a whole bunch of millions of dollars flowing into the pockets of folks who don't need it, who ain't never been to Georgia, who ain't never organized in Georgia, and who ain't never delivered the kind of results that we need to see happen. But you know who has? Us Georgia organizers. And we done did it before.
It's interesting you say that because Dee's going to remember this election back in 2010 when Roy Barnes was running for his comeback against Deal. I was running the AG's race that cycle, and we saw millions of dollars flow into that race for the governor's seat because we knew it was going to be close. And they spent it all on television ads and bad commercials, and none on the field game, none on the ground game. We, from the AG's race, being the third spot down, were working for far smaller budget. So I got in my Volkswagen Jetta and I drove to all 159 counties, knocked on doors, talked to churches, talked to organizers, and we got more votes from the third seat, from the Attorney General seat, than the governor's race or the lieutenant governor's race got that year, because Georgia is a ground game state. So with that, Dee, what advice would you give to people who are listening to this from outside of the South, outside of Atlanta, who want to be involved and who want to be involved and want to contribute? Should they do letter writing, text banking, phone banking, partner? What should they be doing to help out?
They should be sending money to organizations that organize in Georgia, or they can come and volunteer with organizations that work in Georgia under the direction of people who organize in Georgia. So your money and your body is fine if you're going to come and work and be directed. A lot of people don't want to go and knock on doors right now. Like, I have people, yesterday we were out knocking on doors. I was in Columbus knocking on doors, making sure my team knew exactly what to do. A lot of people don't want to do the hard work. They just want the cute work. But right now we need their dollars. We need their money. And this is why I work with Ground Game. And right now I'm organizer for Black PAC, because we need people who understand Georgia and are willing to put the hard work in. I mean, I'm telling you, the reason, this is what I believe. I believe because of all those organizations that were led by Black people collectively working together is why Biden was able to win Georgia. There is no other reason. If people say what they want to say, it had nothing to do with nothing else but Black folk organizing Black folk to get out the vote. That's all it was. And so we've got to keep that momentum up.
All right, same question for you, James. What are some things we should be working on for people who are outside of Georgia? Because we're going to be playing this all over the country. If you want to get involved around the country, what should you be doing other than hopping on the Net Spirit flight down to Hartsfield Jackson and just kind of wandering around, knocking on doors or something? What should people be doing? There's
ample opportunity, but of course, you're more than welcome to join us at the Georgia NAACP. And if not, we're probably already working with Rainbow Push and Black PAC and Collective PAC and all of the other PACs to make sure that we get this job done, because our future is at stake. Our lives are at stake. Our communities are at stake. And even as a preacher, I can say this. Matter of fact, I think we all preachers. The legacy of our God is at stake.
That's right.
Literally. And so this is an act of righteous indignation to let our people breathe, because it says, let everything that has breath praise you, the Lord. So if God ain't getting praised, then I got a problem with that.
See, y'all the preachers. I'm just here to be saved. All right, I think that's a good place. Before we end, please give out any contact information for yourself or organizations that people need to be getting in contact with, and also any final thoughts for our audience who are outside of Georgia that want to get involved. And I'll start with Dee.
Okay, well, James already did NAACP because I was going to do that, but make sure it's the Georgia NAACP. And then I'm going to give a special shout out for DeKalb NAACP with my president, Teresa Hardy, but Georgia NAACP. But you got to make sure you give to Black PAC, You got to give to the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda. You need to give to the New Georgia Project. You need to give to Black Voters Matter. I mean, I can just go down the list. But whatever you do, find some reputable Black organizations and give your money to. Please, 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 please. And don't forget the churches. Sometimes we forget the churches. They do mobilizing and organizing too, even though it's nonpartisan. Like all of our groups are nonpartisan. They need money as well to continue to get out the work to their parishioners. So I just want to remind everybody to the text and remember, James, Reverend Woodhouse said, you got to text, you got to call. And then you got D, who works with Ground Game, who's going to be on the ground, on the doors, hitting those doors in the midst of COVID. See, everybody ain't, brave enough to do that in COVID, but it means just that much to me. I came out of retirement to make sure that Ground Game is tight.
I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, Reverend Woodall. Thank you, Reverend Dawkins Hagler. I want to thank all of you. Make sure you also join Rainbow Push Coalition. We'll be coordinating our Get Out the Vote efforts throughout the state of Georgia to stay up to date. Follow us on social media. Visit the website, rainbowpush.org. Make sure you sign up for a membership. There's a lot of work to be done, and we really need your help. And as Reverend Jackson always says, keep hope alive. Thank you so much.
Dr. Kim, I went to jail with a group of 7 students. July 17, 1960, almost 60 years ago. We never stopped moving. I lost a few of jail cells and death. We never stopped moving. I thought it was time to write some of it down so the older generation can learn how we did and what we did and how global it was. Whether speaking about Mandela in South Africa, India, Qatar, Gandhi in India, here at home. This book tells the story, so please get it. To give it to your friends. Really, let's argue about it, let's discuss it.
Yep, so the book is Keeping Hope Alive, Sermons and Speeches of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. It's quite a good collection. We've got sermons and speeches from around the globe because you have made such a global impact, not just here in the US, but around the world.
Thank you for tuning in to our International Saturday morning broadcast. We need your support. Here are ways to give to Rainbow Push Coalition. Text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444 to support the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and Rainbow Push Coalition. When you shop, Amazon gives. Visit Amazon Smile and select Push for Excellence as your charitable organization by starting your shopping at smile.amazon.com.
Hi, I'm Todd Yeary here outside Dr. King's workshop, the Rainbow Push headquarters, where people of goodwill from all walks and all places gather as comrades in the movement for justice and equality. Social justice movements have been birthed in the imaginations of people in places just like this. You can be a part of this justice movement too. Join Rainbow Push as we fight for justice in the 21st century. Go to rainbowpush.org or dial 773-FREEDOM and remember, keep hope alive.
Get involved with the movement.
Somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Join the movement.
If you're not a member, become a member.
I am somebody.
Fighting the most important battles for freedom and justice for all.
You made us change. Oh, trying to bring closer.
Join Rainbow Push.
But you're not pushing me away.
Join